The question will come forward at a certain stage, and it doesn't need to be asked. What's the difference between joy and happiness, or joy and love, or joy and any other of the good stuff? And the answer to that is really like, try and find it yourself with feeling connection. Explore, look, check for yourselves. If there is a difference? Because we have two words, then what is that kind of difference? What is joy to you? What is joy in your life? Where do you connect to joy? And of course, sometimes it feels like there is no joy in our lives, but that's never true, because there is joy in other people's lives, which means it's also in our lives. You can connect to the joy in another person, you can connect to the joy in animals, in children. Joy isn't even an exclusive human thing. There's a lot of joy which isn't human. Joy is what we would tend to call one of the qualities of our true nature. Meaning, it's not bound in the normal conditions of time and space, physical time and space. So another way to say that is, it's totally possible, and this is, of course, you don't have to believe this. This is something to check out with your own memories or your own explorations. But it's something which can't be lost. It's something that we don't have to do something to get it. Can't fake it. It can't get injured. It's something in the here and now. Not something that, if you're a really good girl, then you get it later. So that's the kind of way we approach qualities of true nature. This is why Adyashanti calls awakening a destructive process, because it's often where we break in our personality or in our beliefs or in our habitual states of being. It's often where those break that the qualities of true nature shine through, especially joy. It's like on the other side of the breakage. It's like we have this person that we think we are all the time, and it's got this state of half happy or half not happy, or whatever the state of being is. And when that facade falls away, something is still there, shining very bright, very alive. And that tends to radiate with true nature. So we don't want to fill in too much about what joy is, because it's, in the end of the day, these qualities are very intimate first-hand experiences, and words can't describe them. You can't really put words to what the experience of joy is. But we did talk about it, and there's a few little features which come forward beyond it being in the now and very close to the awakening of consciousness. It's got something very strongly connected to reunion.
To what?
Reunion. So it's a little bit like when you have somebody we love very, very deeply as a child, and we see them maybe 20 years later, and at first we don't recognize them, and then we recognize them, so there's a recognition, and then there's a reunion, and the heart leaps. It's where two have been connected, and they're divided for a while, and they find each other again. And of course, that's a very practical example, but when you're talking about yourself and God, or yourself and your own source, or even your earliest memory or your inner child, this reunion can be quite profound and very joyful. What's beautiful about this is that what you can see is that at the same time that you could be maybe contacting a deep layer of pain inside the psyche, inside the psychology, a deep layer of pain, there can be at the same time this joy of reunion, because it's a part of yourself which has been lost. And it can be almost like a celebration to suffer sometimes. There can be a joy in discovering a freshness in grief, or revisiting something which has been like following us our whole lives but never really alive, and then it comes to life, and there can be this sense of fulfillment in that moment, almost a joy. So it's not only about the good stuff, it's about truthfulness of experience. And it's about finding this unity through what looks to be separate dimensions. So it's got quite a strong connection to togetherness. Like the miracle of being different people in different bodies and actually seeing each other alive in the miracle of life, in separate bodies. It's got that unity, division within the unity, all happening at once. This joy cuts through. It's the connection. We'll talk a lot more about the other. We'll follow the process together, actually, of where it's connected. So partly what blocks our joy is the deep knowing and wisdom of impermanence, which means that we know that stuff gets lost. There's grief. We lose we can't hold on to what we treasure. We lose our loved ones, we lose our parents, we lose our previous selves, we fall in love, but then it's almost like we don't want to allow the falling in love because it can get lost anyway. So it's got a very deep connection with blocks around grief, not wanting to truly experience life because everything gets lost. And because it's got that connection with grief, it's also got a connection with the instinct to keep things as they are, to preserve them. To freeze them. And all of that is healthy to grieve and to want to preserve. It's all healthy in the play of human psychology, but it can become a source of suffering when it gets too imbalanced one way or the other. So for example, when we go to Wells Cathedral and we go to Stonehenge and we go to Avebury, we're looking at monumental acts of preservation, often connected with the grief process. The big burial tombs that will pass around Stonehenge, these whole mountains, the tour could even be connected with the rituals of birth and death. Certainly Stonehenge. So there is something very worthwhile for the human psychology to move with preservation and to allow grief. And we're not trying to get rid of grief and preservation, we're trying to liberate it, to move where it's needed, in a happy process of living. And in that way, this joy has much more space to shine. You know, we wouldn't grieve anything, the loss of anybody, if we hadn't shared moments of divine, joyful connection with them. And when somebody dies who's close to us, we tend to think the joy is lost. And that's a big part of the grief process. And then we try to get something back of the joy by putting pictures of them and making a monument and all of this, or denying that because it's too painful because of the grief. So it's not only about losing people, it's also about the art of living, because loss is there all the time, and our ability to allow change, loss, is actually totally connected with our ability to rejuvenate, to transform, to heal. When we can't allow the impermanence of life, the changing factor, the cycle, we slow it down and then we begin to suffer. That's often fear-based.